Hi there. Today I'm going to show you how to change a lock in under 10 minutes. First, you have to remove the old lock. This is an old crusty Kwikset that had some condensation form inside of it and it shorted out the circuits. This one is a smart lock, but almost every lock is exactly the same. There's a couple of screws holding the front outside to the inside. In the case of these smart locks, you have to remove this mounting plate that holds the outside to the inside, but then also is a place to mount the inside battery box and electronics. Once you remove this plate, there's nothing holding the front outside part of the lock on, so be careful with the door as we don't want it to fall out. Now in this case, I've already switched out the deadbolt because this is actually the second time I've installed this lock. The first one broke, but this deadbolt matches the new lock. There's the new lock. If you watched a prior video, we rekeyed this to match the key that I already have. I'm just going to tuck that wire through, make sure that bar is lined up with the hole in the deadbolt. And then here, just make sure everything goes in nicely and there's no gaps up against the door. Once I close it, I realize it's a little bit dirty right here, so might as well take some time to clean 90% of it off. All those years of grime can really accumulate under some of these fixtures.
Nice.
So here we have the new mounting plate for the new lock. You can see this one is sealed up a lot better to prevent that condensation from getting in, and there's a little spot for it to stick the wire through. Once the wire is installed, press it up against the door, and there's going to be a pack of machine screws with these kind of locks, and you're going to want the big machine screws. So here you can see the two big machine screws, and they just go right in the only two holes that they will fit in this back plate, and they're going to thread into the lock that's on the front of the door. Sometimes I've had to open the door and hold the outside lock and wiggle things around to get everything to line up. If you can't see, sometimes it's difficult to tell. Here we're going to tighten these down until just barely snug because we're going to want to make sure everything is nice and plumb and level as you're looking at either side of these plates. They can move independently, and so you're going to want to level the outside and the inside. That looks pretty good, and unfortunately I didn't double check the inside before I cranked the screws down and snugged it all up against the door, which I'm going to have to go back and fix here in a second. This is the inner side of the lock. Most of them have some kind of cover that covers the mounting screws that mount the lock to the inner door plate. You're going to want to make sure that that little slot is lined up with the bar that you push through the door before. Make sure you connect your wires. They're usually keyed so they can only go together in one direction. Make sure to tuck the wires out of the way. You're going to want to try and prevent them from getting pinched or smashed. There's usually a channel to run those kind of things through. It was about here I noticed that it didn't quite look straight. So I loosened up the screws just a little bit and tried to tap it into place, but I think that foam seal on the back is a little bit stickier than the old one, and it was really holding onto the door, so I had to loosen it up just a little bit more. Once I got that nice and straightened out, went ahead and really tightened down on these screws. This is the part that holds the lock together, so you're going to want to make sure that this doesn't loosen up on you, or it'll change the way that your latch interfaces with the striker plate on the wall side. Went ahead and pulled the battery pack out. There's no batteries in there yet. Again, you're going to want to tuck the wires before you put this little fascia plate on. This also needs to be lined up with the same slot that the bar was lined up with. Now, in the pack of machine screws, there should be a set of 2 smaller machine screws, and that's to hold this fascia plate onto the mounting bracket that was placed on the door in one of the previous steps. Now these you can put in, and they need to be snug, but this is not what's holding the lock on the outside and securing it. This is just holding the electronics and the fascia plate, so this one doesn't have to be super snug. I usually check right there to make sure everything was moving freely and it wasn't bound up, and everything seemed to be going well. I went ahead and put batteries in the lock and slid the batteries into place, and then you take the cover and you slide it right over, and that's it. In less than 10 minutes, you have installed a new lock.